So we just got the season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery. I invited my sister along to talk about it, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean Chandler. This is my sister,
Tisha Massey.
And I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies and TV way too much. If you can relate, consider clicking that subscribe button. Be sure to share your thoughts on Star Trek Discovery Season 2 down below in the comment section. And as this is a spoiler review, go ahead and spoil away, dive into specific details. No need for spoiler warnings. That's in the title of the video, just so you know. All right, so basically, if you aren't aware of this, we actually reviewed every single episode of Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
In full detail.
In full detail, these 30-minute long videos, and every time I'd be like, hey, we're going to go short this time. And
I'd laugh.
And then it would go 10 minutes longer. And so to give our quick...
Kind of like his live videos.
It's true. Every time I think I'm going to go short, I go even longer. But we weren't able to do that for Season 2 because it's just very time intensive. And my channel has changed dramatically since Season 1. I had under 3,000 subscribers when we started doing those reviews. Actually, yesterday I have 100,000 subscribers.
Yay!
So, woo, that's fun. First time doing a second video I've done since that happened. First time I mentioned it in a video, and the first time I'm wearing one of my new t-shirts as well in one of these videos. Anyway,
I've stolen one of my kids' shirts.
Yeah, you probably should have. So anyway, we say all that because a lot of people were asking, had we watched Season 2? Where are we at on Season 2? Here we're at. We watched all of it in the last 1 week. We binge watched the whole thing, and then we watched the finale at the appropriate time. So before we start diving into our full take on Season 2, quick summary of your feelings on Season 1.
Season 1 was a missed opportunity in that everyone was excited to get a new Star Trek show, and then we were stuck going, how does this fit in the continuity of the show? We spent the first half of the season going, what is this and where does this go? And then the second half of the season, it picked up, and we were like, oh, this is really interesting. And then we popped back, and it got weird again, and then they ended.
Yeah. That's about right. It started off, and the characters were, because of the way they wrote the show, the setup of the scenario of the season, everyone was just jerks to each other. Just
and
not
angry the whole time.
Angry, not just like there's some conflict to keep it interesting, but like they're jerks that hate each other for the first half of the season. So no one was likable, and you really didn't know where things were going.
And you spend most of the time going, are they Star Trek people, really?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some kind of weird thing going on.
Right. And so you're trying to, like, is this whole thing the mirror universe? And then that's kind of where the season went. It was mirror universe, but we weren't in it. We were going to go to it. And so I felt it got a lot better as it went along. And when it fully embraced what the season was about,
mirror universe,
everything got better.
It clicked into place, and suddenly we're like, oh, this is really interesting.
And the characters started working together, so they were a team. They weren't just butting heads with each other. Everything got better once the season kicked in to its full story, and it wasn't just kind of setting the pieces up. Mm-hmm. So mostly agree on it. I probably liked it a little bit more than you did. We were both annoyed by the continuity stuff. You're probably more so frustrated. That leads us to Season 2, us going into it, and they teased Enterprise Pike at the very end of it. So with that said, we're going to give our first impressions of Season 2.
It felt like it mirrored the last season a lot.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it spent first half of the season setting up a lot of weird plot lines that you're going, where is this going? And then about 3-4 really great episodes where the episode ended and you're like, what's going to happen next? I got to know what happens next. And then just totally dropping the ball in the last 2 episodes. Exactly what happened in the first season. I was just like, we spent most of these last 2 episodes that we literally just watched going, why are they doing this? Yeah. Like, they could have saved 2 minutes.
Right.
So it was just odd.
Yeah. The first half of the season for me, I was like, okay, like, you course corrected a bunch of things. Like, the team works together. They have a personality. They're friendly. It's not jerks in space anymore. Pike feels like a Starfleet captain. And we talked about Lorca was one of our favorites, but, obviously wasn't a Starfleet captain.
Yes,
find out why. But the episodes it was like, why are we going in this direction? Where's all this going?
Where is this going?
And introducing
why do we have
plot
these weird
lines.
characters?
It just felt very disjointed. And as soon as Spock came normal, the whole season came together for me.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even because it was Spock. It's not like, oh, I just loved Spock. It wasn't that at all. It was as soon as he came together, the story came together and it was focused.
It's like they're like, we finally have set up all of the dominoes. We've spent 5 episodes setting up all of the dominoes. Now we're going to spend 4 episodes knocking them down.
Yes. And it seems like with this show, they're not very good at the setup phase.
Yeah, they haven't figured out how to do the setup phase.
When they're doing all that stuff and they're putting the dominoes in place, because you get to the end of the season, you're like, oh, all of it does tie together, but it does not feel that way at all for the first 8 episodes. And that seems, and it wasn't interesting. It didn't pull me in. As soon as Spock got his brain back and they're like, this is what's going on and the computer's going crazy, I was like, I'm all in. I can't wait for the next episode.
What's the next episode?
And then, like you said, we get all the way up to those last 2 episodes, and it does have a big battle. There's elements that are really cool, but it just felt like so little material stretched out over 2 long episodes. Not even it's not like 2 40-minute episodes, like 2 hours of like people like staring at the screen and speeches, and we'll get all to that in a little bit. Oh, sorry. With that said, let's move on to the first half of the season. So for me, the first half of the season felt like each episode was setting up something really important that paid off in the second half, but wasn't very interesting on its own. Because you got like a standalone episode that felt like an original Trek episode where like they find a planet with these Earth refugees.
Yeah,
and
it felt like an original series episode. They've actually done a couple episodes that were very much that type of episode where they're like, here's a recreation of Earth and from this specific time period. And it felt like they were just going, remember when we used to do that?
Right, exactly. It didn't feel natural. It felt kind of odd. And it felt like, why do we just do this throwaway episode about this planet?
We have 14 episodes for our season. Why is this episode here?
And clearly they don't...
Especially that episode.
And we're not looking to do a show like that. That's like, we're going to different planets. So it just seemed kind of like throwing a bone to people like us.
Who are going to be like, I remember that from when we were kids!
You gave me what I wanted.
I've been looking forward to that. But then we weren't.
And then we get Tilly... on this weird plot line about her seeing things, and then the spores attached to her, and we go into there. Yeah, and it's I guess just
it was all set up to bring Hugh back, and it felt like they've turned Tilly into Wesley.
Yes, it's
and so what started off as kind of an interesting character has become the character who's like, I can solve it. Done.
Yeah, and it's a little bit too much of that.
Yeah,
now she has a fun personality.
Top. Yes,
which is good, but it's the Wesley Crusher aspect. That's like,
take it back. Yeah, take it back.
Dial it back. Like keep the fun personality. Keep her competent.
Yeah.
Have a nice place in the and also.
But the cadet should not be the one who solves every problem.
Yes, and just there's a couple of those pieces that's frustrating, and then they send her on this plot line about the spores and going into the spore universe. It's like, where are we kind of going with this?
Which had us saying for the rest of the season, going, okay, so is the spore. Every time they jump, are they killing the people in the Spore Drive universe, or was it the fact that Hugh was in the Spore Drive universe? And I've watched that episode twice now, and I'm still not sure. Yeah. Are they killing the Spore Drive universe just by jumping, or was it the presence of Hugh there? Because we had 4 people watching it, and we had several different opinions as to what was going on with that.
Right, and like we debating back and forth, we're like, oh, and we don't have a clear point. Like it's like I see what you're saying, you see what I'm saying, so it's a little bit unclear. How about you guys tell us what your take was down below in the comment section? Then we get Voke, our Klingon offshoot episode, and like as a kid, and
which I hadn't remembered until you brought it up, which shows how well it's stuck in my head.
Right, it's like just kind of this offshoot episode that's there just to get him to Section 31.
To get him to Section 31 so that we know, hey, by the way, he's got a kid that we're going to bring up somewhere later.
And just to put like this, so we have a rabbit trail over here that we can bring some people back towards the end of it. And then we have the search for Spock.
Yes.
Kind of going on. And so then we have a bunch of these very Sarek, Amanda heavy episodes at times. And so you're watching through the season, it's like, I don't know where this is going.
And they're putting in artificial barriers so that they can keep some of the continuity that's in place in the original series. So like Spock just talks about how he hasn't talked to his dad since he went to the academy in Journey to Babel. And So in order to keep that continuity in place, they ensure that Sarek is never actually there when Spock is there. And they put some really ridiculous things to make sure that happens. It's kind of funny.
Yes. So that's this first half of the season. And then even as like Spock showed up, like I'm thinking to myself, like, why on earth would you put Spock on a show just to make him as different from Spock as possible by having him out of his mind? He's got a beard. Like, why?
He looks like his face was swallowed by his wig and his beard.
It's true. Like, why would you do Spock and do all these things to make it so wildly different? And then the final kind of, I guess there's a bunch of different things we could go, but then we have, of course, the first teases of our Red Angel.
Yes. Which ended up being an interesting plot line, but they set it up oddly.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of all of, they set it up all oddly, and there's these signals, and you're not like, I don't know what any of this matters, but that leads us to the second half of the season. And I would say that the turning point going into that second half was the Cage episode.
Yes.
Which as soon as they started that episode, and they had they actually showed footage.
The Telosians, and they showed the footage. I was like, oh no.
Like, I was
sure they were going to mess that up. And especially because they showed the Telosians, and in the original series, the Telosians were actually played by women that were like 5 foot tall, and they were dancers, and they still had the big heads, but they looked like a fragile race. And so when they showed them and they were like these massive, intimidating people, I was like, oh, I don't know about this.
Yeah, as soon as it started, I was like, this is such a horrible idea. And then I'd seen pictures on the internet of the Pike in the wheelchair, and I was like, oh dear, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then it turns out that I'm totally wrong. Like,
they actually played it. They pulled it perfectly. Other than them being giant, they did it perfectly.
And they found this really smart way to make, like, for all the things that they've done, we've complained. And even in this, we complained about the way they've done little Easter eggs and hints about things. And they found a way
this is the way to use them.
Do it right. And you're like, oh yeah, like Pike was still out there. And they were still out there. And there's years between the Cage and the menagerie,
so that worked really well as a way to pull that thread in, and also made sense as a way for Spock to get not crazy,
right?
So which worked very well.
And just even the casting was Melissa George. Probably doesn't mean anything to you, but she's a character on Alias, and so Alias is a show that
it means nothing to me.
Jennifer and I have watched a whole lot, and so she's a character in the third season that's like pretty important. So that's like, as soon as she appeared on screen, Jennifer's like, "Is that the girl from Alias?" I was like, "It is the girl from Alias." But so that, as soon as that episode started, I'm rolling my eyes, and then the episode wins me over, and then Spock snaps out of it. And we start to figure out what's going on with the plot line. Yeah. And I was instantly hooked. Like, I had...
That's when we started texting each other, like, oh, what did you think about that interactions? And so it was that they had a younger Spock who you could see where he becomes the Spock that we know later in the series, just apparently with a face-eating wig on him. Yeah. I really hated that wig.
Oh, he didn't... In the beard that goes up in the corners a little bit. Jennifer asked me once, like, why wouldn't you just shave that? I was like, he's a Vulcan. What's the logic in shaving that? I don't know why.
I don't know why. I liked the fact that Michael made fun of his beard.
Yeah.
That is a very sister thing to do.
And so it kicks in, and so right off the bat we actually get to understand the Spock Michael dynamic a lot better. And the way that, and then the way he breaks her down. Mm-hmm. And so we have the episode where they're sitting down and she pulls out the chessboard to try and get him back to be normal and to fix him. And Spock turns it around to try and fix her.
With the chessboard.
And even like everything he's doing is just this out maneuvering her and out manipulating her emotions and everything of like the actual psychology of this person that perceives of herself as the center of the universe, which actually plays out even to the end of the episode, end of the season. This idea that Michael
is the center of the universe, which is what we've been joking about all along for this entire show. Everything is about her.
And Spock just puts it in her face like, you're the one that like led to this happening, and you're responsible for this, and
you think you need to do this and this and this. I was like, Good job, Spike.
Just puts her in her place. So that was really nice. But right around here as well is where we finally get the what's been going on, how the pieces are fitting together, and we get the plot line some people thought was a setup for the Borg, but this artificial intelligence.
All of the fan theories I've seen were like Borg. Everyone else thought it was okay, here's how we can fix the continuity. This explains why it is, all of these different things that everyone's been complaining about. So it's like, okay, I can see what they could be doing. So, yeah.
And as soon as this stuff started, and they're like, we got to get to Section 31, the base. I'm like, all of this, I was on board with it. Like, just tracking along.
Other than the size of Section 31, because when we see Section 31 in Deep Space Nine, it was like this deep, dark secret that nobody knew about. And then suddenly here, everyone knows about it. And they've got over 30 ships.
Yeah, and just Pike meets someone. They're like, "This is why it's what's going on." Oh, your section.
I totally gotcha.
And 30 plus ships, gigantic bases everywhere. Everyone knows black uniforms and everything.
Yeah, it's still cool, but it doesn't make sense with what they've set up previously.
And as you're kind of going through it, it created an immediate urgency up to where, like, okay. Like, what's going on? Oh, that person's been infected. Oh, wait, other people can be infected. How are we going to get out of this gigantic mess? Everything going on. And just even the idea of, like, there's, very Terminator-esque Skynet, time loop.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Terminator.
It is there's a lot of Terminator things.
Even to one of the things that your husband was talking about, how, like, wait, who started the Destiny? It's a loop that just kind of goes like, that's John Connor, too. Of like, John Connor exists because John Connor exists, and he was sent back because he has to exist. And that's what this season does, of the Destiny, the messages, and everything.
We are beginning the loop and everything. Yeah.
But that leads us from Section 31 and that cool episode with the person infected. And they overplayed the dramatic, but like, oh no, she has to die. I was like, who's this character again? Like,
I know.
Like, who? Like, I know I've seen this person, but this isn't like Data. Like,
yeah. Well, and also because it made no sense, because this is Michael Burnham is the same character who, as they introduced her, was willing to deck her captain and essentially start a fight. Because that was the logical thing to do. And instead, in this episode, she's sitting there going, no, I can't.
Yeah.
Which was a frustrating thing. Because it's like, that's not your character.
Yeah, it's like, wait. And that, I mean, we'll get to characters later on in this. But there's some pretty big rewrites of her character this whole season.
Yes.
Dramatic
Which were actually somewhat needed because of how they had written themselves into a corner first season.
So this kind of continues on, and we get to discover who our Red Angel is, which is Michael's mother. And that was... I was anticipating it was going to be Michael from the future, which, as it turns out, I was correct to an extent.
Yes.
That is her mother, and that we invented time travel in Star Trek universe years before this, and it's a very sci-fi type suit.
Yeah.
And
it gets into the problems in general where people are like, this is a lot higher tech than what we have before. Right. But we're like, okay. Like, Section 31 has always been weird.
Right. Star Trek's always had time travel. It's been a major part of Star Trek.
It's been a major problem, but never that much. Except for one episode in the original series.
Yeah, it's not a suit. It's not so clean. It's literally, let's fly around the sun. Let's find a wormhole. It's stuff like that rather than this piece of technology that's powered by a time crystal. So her mom shows up in... It seemed like didn't seem like it paid off as much as it probably should have.
It didn't pay off as it could have, but
it was nice. Yeah, I didn't hate it. It wasn't like, wow, where are you going with this? It just didn't.
It wasn't this. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. Yes. It was just there, which
it's to some extent that's almost because of what they did with it too, which is it was just one episode.
Yes, she's
just like her mom shows up for an episode to set up the kernels for where, or the seeds for this path for where we're going to go in the future. Yeah. But it's not.
She's there for 15 minutes of our time.
Yeah,
and then gone.
And that doesn't give you time to care. Yes. For such an enormous bomb on Michael's life.
Yes.
Because that feels like that should be a season
And they make
arc.
it into a bigger bomb than it seems like it should have been, relatively speaking, for the amount of for how they did
the amount of time they gave.
Yeah.
Which seems like potentially what the next season will be, but we'll get into that later on. And so then we kind of set up the final pieces of they're trying to like delete the files, they're trying to blow up the ship, trying to do all this stuff as Control is trying to merging in on them to try and take it, which leads us to the episode where both of us were like, I like had to actively stop myself from keep watching.
Yeah.
Because we watched the first handful of episodes together last Friday, and then we watched separately at home, and we both almost kept watching. Like we said, like, let's watch the last 2 episodes together.
And we both, I was like, I think I'm at the last one I'm supposed to wait for.
Yes.
And we're like, okay.
And we're like, did you watch it? Did you watch it? Did you watch it?
Can I watch it?
Like, sorry. So that leads us to the finale, the 2-part finale over 2 weeks. For us, it was just the last 2 hours of Glass. So I think that my understanding is you probably were way more frustrated with the finale than I was. I was frustrated, but I wasn't driving me nuts. It seemed like it was driving you nuts. It felt like they took 40 minutes of episode and stretched it over 2 hours.
Yes.
And so then the first part from last week, like if we hadn't just binge watched that, if I was watching this and it was like I have to wait another week, that would have driven me crazy. That would have
been annoying as all get out.
Because it's an episode that exists like purely as filler.
Yeah. Because there was 10 minutes of people filming goodbye letters.
Yeah.
And there was, a lot of dramatic slow walks.
And like people saying goodbye just to have in the next scene. No, we're all going to be there together, and just like all sorts of like
it was
fake
a lot of setup that could have been done in 5 minutes. That we're going. I'm really glad that we're watching it all now. Like if I had been watching it on my own, I probably would have fast forwarded through large portions of it because I was just like, I don't.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I was like, why am I watching 2 minutes of them staring at screens?
It's in particular so bad because you get up to at the end of the previous episode and it's like 30 ships are gonna like coming in on us. We're about to die. Oh no! I mean, this will be.
You're like, oh gosh, this is gonna go right into a fight, and we're going big deal.
and then we go to the next episode.
No,
and it's a bunch of jargon. Like, all right, we gotta have a plan. We're gonna have to go into the future. Star Trek mumbo jumbo telling us the science, and then 30 minutes of goodbyes.
Yeah, dramatic goodbyes, breakups, get-togethers,
introducing new characters.
Yeah, new characters. Fun girl who really likes ice cream. We haven't watched the Star Trek, the Discovery shorts yet.
So we've been assuming that's from the Discovery shorts that we missed. We get. Had we seen Rebecca Ramon Stamos earlier in the season?
She had like a 30-second cameo.
I was almost positive we'd seen her before.
Yeah, we saw her for like 30 seconds.
And she has a real she pops. You immediately know is like, oh, they're going for the number one from there's Major Barrett in the original one. And so as soon as you see her, like she had a presence that made you go, oh, okay, that's
I knew who that was
instantly, even though they don't look anything alike.
They don't look anything alike, but they styled the hair similarly, and she figured out she had the right carriage.
Yeah, yes.
That's impressive for, how little Majel Barrett's character number one was on previously.
Right, you're talking about legitimately one pilot episode 50 years ago, and you instantly recognize her.
Yes.
And so that was pretty cool. And so then she came back later into these episodes. So it's a little bit weird that they're adding characters in, but it worked, and it made sense, and it was a character that popped.
Yeah, and it's one that it's a reward for those of us who've seen Star Trek before to be like, hey, I know that person.
Right there. And then our new character, our fun queen of the people.
Who likes ice cream.
That likes ice cream a whole lot. Just a nice little spark inside the show.
Fun little character.
But so then we set all this stuff up in the first half, and we go into the second half, and everything likewise.
There's been more setup.
There's still had a lot of setup. Of course, massive battle that runs a long time.
Yes.
But even inside of this episode where you have enormous amounts of battle, like right as Michael's about to have to jump, Spock's got to stay behind. They go into this like
10 minutes,
like unbelievable
10 minutes sob fest.
Yeah, between two people raised Vulcan, and like it was all me, and I should have known better. No. All along it was me that was like.
I learned so much from you, Michael.
It was so stretched out, and it felt like the sort of thing that happens when you take one episode's worth of material and stretch it over 2 episodes. So everything in there, if you'd condensed it into one episode, you could have powerful goodbyes in the first one. Is it like we realize we're going to have to make a sacrifice and we're leaving this universe. Boom, we go straight into our battle. And we don't need to make the battle...
they added stuff for the sake of having more explosions,
and it's just so much stuff, and it was like
it's visually distracting.
So it's like we've got 30 ships, yeah. Well, we got 200 ships, yeah. Well, we got 2,000 drones, yeah. Well, we got Klingons, yeah. Well, we got Sarus. Like I just keep more and more things, and so they kept doing these wide shots,
and the wide shots were just all like fireworks. It's like
so we've had this season building up for an epic battle. You did give us epic. There's things in there that are very cool, but I would say it's an example of too much. As if for me, when I think about the 2 greatest space battles of all time, I go to Star Trek and Star Wars. I go Return of the Jedi. Out the whole sequence in that one, Lando and the Falcon, all that stuff. I just think it's phenomenal. And then Star Trek 2. And so one of those is the big busy battle, but it's busy and you know what ships are trying to do. And you go Star Trek 2. It's just two ships moving slowly, trying to outmaneuver each other. And this one just feels like, how do we keep doing better and better? There's more things. But you don't have the specific thing that they're trying to accomplish. You don't know what each is
specifically doing, and it felt like you're just like, I don't know which John I should be following.
Right, and so then it looks like, if you see just shots in a trailer, it's not very exciting, but you see that same shot in a good movie, that is really cool because you're
you
following.
Understand why it's going
and
there.
This guy's trying to get to this place to do this thing. They didn't have a lot of that in this space battle. It's like you needed more of the sequences of Michael needs to get away, and so they need to form people everything needs to kind of come together. This is the weirdest. I recently rewatched The Matrix Revolutions.
Why would you do that to yourself?
It was the 20th anniversary of the first film being released. And the battle for Zion begins, and it's literally just stuff everywhere, and then robots going... the first 20 minutes, and it's this visual noise. And then as it moves into the last 5 minutes, it's like, this guy needs to run over here to open the door. And there's way less action at this point in time. There's way less stuff on the screen, but far more exciting because it's like, this guy needs to get here. This person needs to blow up that ship so that they can get there. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need. And this didn't have enough of the clear objectives inside of our space battle.
I think that was the big problem with it. Yeah.
And so
clear objectives.
Our admiral with the psychology major.
Yes. Our psychology major admiral is going to defuse the bomb.
Going to defuse the bomb. She can't do it. And so we get this moment where
Pike comes in, drama. I'm going to sacrifice myself. No, you can't. You've got a future.
And once again, it's one of those little moments that if you weren't doing an overly stretched out episode, you would just have him say, I'm coming down there. I'm going to let you out. You're an admiral. She goes, no. You've got a fate. And it would be like 2 great lines from each of them. I have to do this. And she just shuts it. And you go, oh, that was a powerful moment.
But it's still good. It's 2 minutes.
It's a good scene.
It was a good scene, but it wasn't great.
It wasn't great. And it felt like, wait a minute. Why he traveled through the whole ship just to get down there to have a conversation they could have over communicators. She could have just been, boop, hey, I'm doing this. Instead they do the face to face, and I it's those little moments that when you stretch it out, that's where you run into the problems. But the good thing about the episode, I think, is that it made the first half of the season
makes sense,
and makes you go, oh, okay, now I'm interested in rewatching it to see the setting pieces. The dominoes up, because all the dominoes I see now that they tie together and they come together, and it's all meant to do all this. But up to this point in time, I was
not seeing it,
and I wasn't seeing how all of that was working together. So this leads us to kind of our final section, to where they open it up. Michael goes through. Oh, I guess one final thing, and so Michael does the 5 jumps to go back to the previous episodes, and so the episode ends up having a whole lot of flashbacks to earlier episodes
previously on Star Trek Discovery,
and then she jumps through it, and it's Star Trek the motion picture, look at the special effects as a person in a suit flies through, it does some of that stuff. Once again, the effect of her jumping through the portal when it did that was cool.
Yeah.
Every time they did that when it was going between the moments, I was like, that's a cool shot.
The opening, it was
just like, okay, look, a person into special effects. It's 2019. I don't care. Because it's stretched out. So we get to our final section, and they jump, and then we
don't see anything with them.
We don't see anything with them.
Okay, so
we'll get to that. We got to close out our episode, so we jump forward, I don't know, 6 months or whatever, and we're in San Francisco at Starfleet Command, and all of our people are like, yeah, it blew up.
Totally blew up. That's what happened.
They're gone.
You're gone. You gotta believe me.
The censors said this. Are you saying that didn't happen?
Blew up.
Like, you want me to like disagree with your censors? I don't think that I should do that. And then you get to the end of it, and then Spock delivers the retcon speech.
Yeah.
I think that we should
delete all memory.
Blah, 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 blah. Mumbo jumbo. Delete all memory of Discovery, of the spore drive, of all of this. Completely ignore that they ever existed. Why would we do that? To solve the continuity problems that we created with this show. It's such a weird sequence because there's not a... What's the rationale of why they would put this in there if not for the purpose of appeasing angry fans? Like, did you start out episode 1 like, and then at the end of season 2, we're going to write this out, we're going
to write this so it never existed. So, like, at the very beginning when some of the fan sites I've been seeing have been theorizing this entire season was set up to try and course correct and fix all the things that everyone was frustrated about with... Figure out, okay, why we've never heard of Michael before, why we've never seen the spore drive before, why the technology is so vastly different. And then we're like, literally, that was his 5-minute speech.
Yeah, he gave a little speech to fix it all.
His 5-minute speech was, and now we will just hit the delete button. And I was like, oh, you dropped the ball again, Discovery.
Yeah, it's like they chose...
It felt like the Enterprise. So Enterprise was the last Star Trek series, and the very last episode was a 2-hour episode. That's what Star Trek has traditionally done for the last few series. And it was Riker in the holodeck going and interacting with the crew of the Enterprise.
Totally random episode.
And it wasn't even like Riker, like, he was just like, I am facing a tough decision. And so he talks with Troy, who's like, Captain Archer faced a tough decision too. You should go talk to Captain Archer. So he takes on the role of the cook. And that's what this felt like.
Well, and so the idea being, the finale of Discovery is suddenly all about Enterprise. And Spock shaving his beard and fixing his hair, so putting on a blue shirt.
Well, you got the uniform on, and you're like, oh, it's Spock! We should be happy!
And then our season ends with the Enterprise...
Warping off.
It's like there's some nostalgia beats to it that are nice.
Yeah.
But you just feel like it's the wrong note to end on.
It's the wrong note for their show. That's a great note to end on. If it was Star Trek Enterprise, you don't end your show with Star Trek Enterprise when you're Star Trek Discovery. So.
And like, I was like, I really hope that we're going to get another scene that like we end on the actual show that we're watching, and then they didn't.
They didn't. In which case, I was like, is that the end?
So we were speculating, when are they going to end up in time? Like, are they going to jump into Next Generation? Or we have this Old Man Picard show coming. Says one of my speculations, like, is the last scene going to be, like, it cuts to black, Enterprise flies off, and then fades back in, they pop out somewhere, and Old Man Picard's there. And there actually isn't an Old Man Picard series. It's season 3 of Discovery. Like,
which would be really interesting.
That would be like a very nice way to... trick the audience and trick them in an honest way.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. But that would have been cool. No, we don't get anything.
We don't get anything. Which leaves us going, what? Because it's renewed for next year, but it leaves us going, what's going to happen to the crew? Where are they?
You legitimately ended on the note of, we erased you from history.
You no longer exist.
And then we don't end off showing you where you're at or anything. You're gone. We're talking about the Enterprise. And so I assume what's going on is that wherever they're going, it'll be some sort of reveal. And if it is Next Generation, if it is Picard, there's casting things that go along with that. There's all these things that they haven't done yet, haven't written yet, or they're still deciding it. They like when it.
Well, no, they've renewed Discovery. All the people for Discovery have said they're coming back next year.
But right, but I know they're renewed, but that's not the same thing as we have a script, and maybe they want to see where people are going. I just trying to figure out why you would not put the tease there, because the last season had the tease.
Yeah.
And so that's where when this one, it's like when you leave it so open, we're going to the future. And it's a very weird note to end on. All right, let's loop back around and talk about some specific characters inside of the season and kick it off with Pike. So last season we had Lorca, who we thought the character was fun.
Was interesting, fun. Favorite character of the season.
And he couldn't come back for a variety of reasons. We get Pike now. And, I mean, right off
Pike's
the bat...
the traditional Star Trek captain.
Yeah, traditional captain. And so just naturally makes it feel more like Star Trek.
Yeah. Charismatic. He had the right lead and interesting.
And when there's a scenario when are we going to go to this planet, who's going down, how we're going to handle it, it's a very Star Trek captain kind of response, as opposed to Lorca, who's like, yeah, let's torture this spore creature. Like, wait, what? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And then as opposed to him, where it's like, okay, yeah, this feels like a guy that should be leading a Star Trek show.
Yes.
And I didn't think he was necessarily as interesting as Lorca. Mm-hmm. But he feels like a better anchor for a Star Trek show.
Yes.
And the way they use him throughout the season was really nice.
Yes, they used him well, and they showed a character arc for him, and they did good tie-ins to what we know of him as a person, which was very rewarding.
Yes, and like I'd seen pictures, because obviously as we mentioned, we started watching this just a week ago. They showed pictures on the screen of him in the wheelchair, and I was like, oh no, they're going to put him in the wheelchair in this. I do not like that idea at all. And that's not what they did. That like the way they used it was really nice.
They used it well,
and so we don't know a lot from the Kelvin universe about him. Like it's not like he spent a lot of time with him, and everything that we had, they played nicely.
Yeah.
So then let's move on to Spock. I was pretty mixed on him.
Yeah, I liked his interplay with Michael. That really worked to give her more personality. But there was times where he felt too human and not Vulcan.
Yeah. And I thought he seemed too condescending in a way different. Like we've got Nimoy, we got Zachary Levi, and I always felt that was that is a different person. That's Shazam. Yes. Different people from a TV show around that time period.
Yes.
Quinto, we got Zachary Quinto, and it felt it. Like you could tell it felt right, and there was some continuity. You could argue like maybe Quinto's too emotional at times, but I felt it more obviously. I could see him as 21st century Nimoy, and felt like the same character. This one, I was like, he feels like a Vulcan I've seen on other Star Trek shows. I don't know that I see Spock.
No.
So that was kind of the problem for me. There were some nice interactions, and as he went along, I saw it more.
Yes.
But at first,
not. And then at the end, he lost it.
Yeah, the finale.
The finale, he was like, "I'm gonna cry because you're my sister."
And his speech, and like, "I was in the wrong. It's not you, and you made me better, and I love you."
Find your anchor.
So, favorite characters of the season?
The new engineer they brought in. I thought she was fun. She was kind of crazy. I really liked her introduction. They used her just the right amount. I actually would have liked to see her a hair
little bit more. She seemed to disappear in the middle of the season.
Yeah, she's disappeared in the middle of the season, but always reappeared for like dramatically convenient moments.
And this actress plays the same character in everything.
See, I don't remember seeing her
she's in Instant Family, and she's always doing the same exact role. I think it fit the best here.
Yeah.
She played really nicely. Well. And in the show, it adds a nice humor into the mix, a nice little spice inside.
Which has been needed because they're all super serious.
Yeah, this season they lightened up. This was last season was super serious. This season they
lightened up. Yeah.
A little bit too much with some of them. Like Tilly's a little bit too goofy at times.
Yes.
Other favorites. Michelle Yeoh is. I know your answer.
Michelle Yeoh is fun.
Yeah, and
I liked her so much.
And she's
kind of crazy.
Naturally, when you're the mirror universe character in this universe, that people don't necessarily know about it, except maybe they do because Pike at the right it's like, what mirror?
She shouldn't have. He should. Okay, yeah, that's the other thing. But but it was played fun well. Michelle Yeoh's character was a lot of fun, and they did it. You could see where she was the mirror universe, but you also saw the character growth of her, of where she had changed and where she had people that she cared about.
Yes, and it played it a real nice dynamic into the show that felt right. Like, she belongs in Section 31, but she
belongs in Section 31. She's awesome there.
And at the same time is playing against them while being for them at the same time.
Yes.
It's a real nice
and playing
addition.
them, yes.
And then as we move into the last couple episodes, she's the standout because she got all the best lines.
Yeah, she got all the best lines. She got the best scenes.
And so everything with her just paid off really well, had the right timing, and a nice battle, a nice, gets to take out the main bad guy. So she got the
best scenes.
And this leads to a problem. So our favorite characters, Pike, there's a nice addition, Star Trek captain. Yeah. Spock had some nice dynamics. Yeah. And then we list off some other people, but our actual main cast
is...
Yeah.
They really improved Michael's character this season, but then the problem was that then she changed so much that it felt in contradiction to who she has been previously. So there was some scenes where you're like, I see what they were trying for originally, and then some scenes were like,
well, it seemed like almost this whole season was trying to course correct is the language you've used, but entirely all the characters. So Michael last season was just the human Vulcan that everyone hates because she blew up her ship and killed her captain and everything. And then this time she's much lighter-hearted. We're getting into her backstory. She's apologizing to people. Tilly's now she's Wesley Crusher. She's super goofy. Stamets is much lighter-hearted. But we killed off his was he
boyfriend or
husband? I don't remember which one it is. So then we bring him back, and so we undid what we did with that one. Saru, it was always a weird to he's afraid of death, and let's put him in command. And so then we have a whole episode dedicated to undoing that. And so that
felt weird.
That's a lot of undoing a lot of plot lines. And it felt, it feels so much so that they went we really wrote ourselves into a weird corner with the first episode of this show. Where we kicked off this series, wow, we are in a weird spot. And
we got to figure out how to change that.
And whether that's retconning the Discovery out of continuity, whether that's changing people's personalities, that's making Saru's things fall out of his head. It's we'll kill people and we'll bring him back. That's a lot of just strange retconning. Yeah. All right, let's close things out since we've been going. I thought we were going to go for 20 minutes, which of course meant we'd go the longest we've ever gone. Where do we think things are going next season?
I have no clue because they have just taken it. In theory, they're 930 years in the future. No. I don't know what they're going to do. That's...
I have a hard time thinking we're going to go that far in the future because then it turns into Voyager. Yeah. It turns off, we're going to go so far away that nothing's recognizable and we're just trying to get back. I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah. It seems like they like to tie it to something. That's where I feel like, are we going to have this run parallel to Picard?
It would be an interesting setup to be a setup for Picard. Or I don't know how they would do that, but it could be interesting.
Do the crazy thing that we've haven't seen yet, which is a recast of Next Generation and run parallel to some of that stuff. It seems like they like to run close to it, but then again, they've been trying to break all of that for 2 seasons since they've set all that up. So I don't know either. So overall,
anyone have any theories?
Yeah, tell us your theories down below.
We're clueless.
And we're new to this. We've only joined in this conversation in the last week. Final thoughts on the season and, I don't know. Final thoughts.
This season felt like they were trying to course correct and change from the last season where everyone was like, here, what are problems? Continuity. But it followed the same course of the first season where it went there, look really cool. Crash and confusion. So I don't know.
They don't
do.
know how to take off. They don't know how to land. But once you're in the sky, you're golden.
Yeah.
There we go. We figured out, right? There's a nice, solid way to see it. Thank you so much for joining me and talking Star Trek again with me, having some back and forth, doing something a little bit different. Tell me you guys' take down below in the comment section. This should be very, very interesting to see what everyone has to say about Star Trek. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.